So, in case anybody's unfamiliar, what are the requirements for becoming an MCT? You mentioned that we need to go to a training provider to learn, get that certification. What does that mean, and what other requirements are there? Welcome to the next installment of Engineer in the Loop for people who develop with models in the loop. This episode is brought to you by Nebraska Code. Nebraska Code 2025 is almost here. From July 23rd, 2025, the Cornhusker Marriott in downtown Lincoln transforms into the Heartland's biggest dev playground, celebrating its 10-year milestone with 3 jam-packed days of learning and networking, and more inspiring keynotes, hallway track camaraderie, and a buzzing sponsor, Expo, perfect for leveling up your tech stack and your contact list. Welcome to the next installment of Engineer in the Loop. We got special guest today, Dwayne. How's it going, Dwayne?
Good. How are you doing, Alec? Hey, Brian.
Not too bad. If you guys aren't familiar with Dwayne Natwick is a certified trainer for Microsoft. He carries, I think, every certification that I've seen in IT, so not just Microsoft, a bunch of other ones. And I saw a LinkedIn post, Dwayne, that you were recently certified to train the trainers for Microsoft.
Yes, my organization was accepted into the Instructional Skills Certificate Program, which is what Microsoft requires anybody that wants to be a Microsoft certified trainer to go through as part of their process of becoming an MCT.
So in case anybody's unfamiliar, what are the requirements for becoming an MCT? You mentioned that we need to go to a training provider to learn, get that certification. What does that mean, and what other requirements are there?
Yeah, so going through the instructional skills program is really, like you said, a train the trainer program. How do you deliver online courses? How do you deliver labs? What are some of the nuances around connecting to students? A lot of people know the technical aspects of things really well, but how do you approach it, and how do you make sure that it's relatable to everybody rather than just relatable to yourself? So that is something that Microsoft's had for a long time. It used to be, CompTIA had kind of a train the trainer that was part of that. They retired that program. So Microsoft kind of took hold of that themselves by finding organizations that were willing to build their own curriculum around instructional skills, and thankfully they accepted me this year. Starting July 1st, I'll be in that program. I'll be listed on the Microsoft Learn site. If you go to the Becoming an MCT, you'll find Captain Hyperscaler listed there. So I'm really excited about that, because I really feel very passionate about mentoring others into that program and into being an MCT, into being a Microsoft MVP, and being a trainer and things of that nature as well. So that's one of the requirements. The other requirement is having an advanced certification, like an associate or an expert level. You can't just pass and hold a fundamental certification and become an NCT. You got to have the more advanced technical level certifications, like AI Engineer Associate or Azure Administrator Associate, Azure Developer Associate, any of those, depending on what your role is and what your skill set is. Those are a key aspect. So those role-based certifications, Microsoft's changed. One of the discussion topics a lot of times has been also Microsoft has other certifications around like Office and Excel and stuff like that. That is not a path to become an MCT anymore. They grandfathered in people that were already training as what they call MOS rather than MOC certifications, but that they kind of drawn the line there. The other piece too is that Microsoft recently announced was during COVID, they've waived since 2020 the annual fee to be an MCT every year. One of the things not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year. So I think fiscal year 2027 is when it's going to come into play. So you've got a year of leeway. If you become an MCT this year, you can do it for free. But come July 2027, when Microsoft starts that fiscal year, it will be a cost. And I believe the cost is going to be $400, which is actually about half of what it used to be. It was, I think, $1,000 for an individual freelancer, and it was $800 if you were a partner, if you're an MCT and a partner. So they brought it back, which is a good thing. That and the instructional skills kind of level set the trainer program because it got flooded by a lot of people that just became MCTs because they could, and they get a lot of benefits from that as well. So for that $400, you probably get well over $400 worth of stuff
Easily.
in terms of subscription licenses and operating system licenses and Microsoft 365. They actually brought back the Microsoft 365 benefit for MCTs this year. They're working on other benefits as well, as we go further into, needing to have Copilot to train in Copilot and stuff like that too. So yeah, easily more than $400 worth of licensing and stuff that you have access to as well. So it's well worth the price, but I'm glad they've put a price on it again, because it does bring a little bit more of the benefit of being an MCT and somebody becoming an MCT because they want to teach. And that's really, really the key benefit, if you want to teach, you want to teach others and go a little bit further than kind of day-to-day engineering, day-to-day architecture and things like that. That's why I do it. I know, I have a passion for it, and, Brian and I knowing each other for as long as we have, I know he's got a passion for it. So you got to have a passion for it before you do it, because it is kind of a grind. And
there's
it can be a grind
of,
at times.
I was just going to say that I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a lot of scheduling stress with it.
Yes, there can be.
Yeah. So, sometimes you get something popping up. It's like, can you be in, I don't know, Boston next week? No, but I guess if you need me really badly, I can try to figure it out.
You hate to say no because, if you don't have anything else for it. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep, those are exactly. Or if a class cancels, that's supposed to start Monday and it was going to, and it's Friday.
That's the worst.
Those are the worst things as well.
Because that's the one that really affects the bottom lines. When you had booked something and it's like, oh, by the way, we're canceling that because nobody signed up, or because, the client decided they wanted to wait a month. We're going to do it a month later now or whatever. But along those points, becoming an MCT does open more doors. Like if you really want to be a trainer, you really want to actually offer knowledge. Like, if you just want to sell your knowledge, we were talking about this a little bit offline. You go to Udemy, you can go to YouTube, you can do whatever, you can monetize yourself. But if you want to actually make a business out of this, like an additional avenue for your business, like I'm not saying there aren't YouTube creators that are doing far better than me, but the opportunities with the MCT by your name means that now other companies might subcontract to me that simply can't. Or specifically, I can't officially teach an AZ204. I can make YouTube videos on it, but if you want to actually come to the building and teach people or whatever, you got to have that MCT behind your name, right? So Dwayne, you mentioned something that was interesting to me too. With the instructor training program that you're doing for Microsoft, I know they have like a 4-letter acronym for it, ICSB or something like that.
ISCP. Yeah.
ISCP. Okay. Not MCP, ISCP. Okay. Very good.
Instructional Skills Certificate Program. That's
nice. There we go.
Acronym. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
And if you can't answer this question, that's fine. You can just say, I can't answer this question. But I'm curious, did you have to create your own curriculum, or do they offer a prefab, you're just reselling it?
I had to create my own curriculum.
Okay.
In terms of, and that was
part
of my...
How did you know what to do? How did you know what to do for that? Like what were there guidelines, or was it just like, I know that if I need to train a trainer, they should know there should be an instructional component, a design component. Like, how did you go about that?
We all learn from others, right? There's a list on Microsoft Learn of other instructional skills providers, and ones that I have actually recommended others to go to and gotten feedback that, hey, this was a good course. I kind of looked at kind of the main topic areas they were covering and built my own custom curriculum out of that. So just get an idea of, especially because there's ones that have been doing this for years, what are some of the key things to look at? I also used a little bit of Copilot for it too, to give me kind of an idea of an outline.
Cheater.
Give me that's not cheating. It's efficiency in life. And I had to tweak and customize it and adjust it for what I wanted to cover and how I wanted to cover it, putting in, here's where we're going to do role playing and things of that nature as well. I had to, they wanted also me to create a rubric of how I'm going to rate people's presenting skills and
Sure.
things like that as well. It was very much like building a school type curriculum, much more so than the training curriculum that we do for a certification, where we're teaching the certification determined topics. This was, how do we actually grade somebody so that when they come out of this class and I tell Microsoft, hey, Alec has completed this class, he earned his certificate, he's ready to be he meets the criteria to be an MCT, I have what I've rated him on. And that's what those were a lot of the things that they looked at. Actually, they came back to me like a week before the determination and asked me for that rubric, because that was one of the pieces that I forgot. I don't think it specifically mentioned it as in the application process.
Sure.
that was one of the key things. But yeah, so I had to put that together as well. But yeah, it's just like when you're building a video course or something like that, you're going to take things from good stuff that you've seen. And that's kind of where I kind of built the foundation, but then making it my own. And some of the things around taking my course is I've mentored a lot of individuals in becoming MCTs. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be a instructional skills provider. Was, one of the things that I'm mentoring on being an MCT that I couldn't provide for them was the instructional skills class.
Sure.
So now I can give them the instructional skills class. I can help give them everything they need to know, kind of help guide them and mentor them to completing that process and getting onboarded. And then, as well as being a freelancer myself, working for various learning providers, I have contacts that I can provide and give you introductions to, as well as part of being part of my class and the Captain Hyperscaler team, so to speak.
So like the CTT Plus, that was the one that was retired, but you've done a lot of very similar certifications where you do a written component or whatever, and then they evaluate and they get back to you like 2 months later and say you're certified. So taking that into account, like to be a train the trainer type of thing, for that one you had to do like some submission of an actual like presentation where you were doing it in video, like in person, and then another one where it was like a written component or something. If I recall correctly, there were a couple components to that. Did you take something like that in your approach, or is your approach more straightforward? Like you mentioned, you have a rubric to like grade people. So like, do you have to do like, my first thought was I wouldn't even offer it to someone who hasn't spoken at a conference. Right? Do you have to have some sort of like professional speaking experience, or can I just be someone that comes out of college and be like, I think I want to be an MCT?
I mean, it's going to be evaluated appropriately in terms of your speaking skills. I'm not putting a prerequisite necessarily on it at first. A lot of the people, I was telling you before we went live, I've already got 15 or 16 people interested in my first cohort. So, and most of those people are connections in LinkedIn. Good, probably 75% of them are people that I've interacted with on LinkedIn that I know have spoken at conferences and things like that too. I think, I don't think that somebody like necessarily right out of college wants to, for the most part, jump right into teaching, in terms of technical, but there are outliers in that as well. And part of my curriculum is you're going to pick a Microsoft course that you want to deliver, and you're going to deliver deliver an hour to me, in terms of lecture and labs. So it's going to be like an associate level course. Like I know, Alec, you were saying you're looking at the AI 102, deliver, 30-minute presentation, deliver a 30-minute lab to me so that I can see that you are comfortable in that setting. And, probably throw a couple questions at you and things like that. So there's going to be role playing in my course to verify that you're comfortable in that environment. And if you're not, we just mentor, that we build like kind of a plan after. The plan is that this is a 3-day course over the course of like 3 Fridays for the first. If I feel that you haven't met those standards in terms of the rubric, we'll set up various study sessions to kind of build you there. I'm not just going to say, I'm not just going to mark you on the rubric and kind of fail you. You're paying money to come to my class. I'm going to continue to mentor you and make sure I get you to where you need to go.
Yeah, I think that's a different experience, especially when you talk about just education and courses in general, right? Because Brian, you and I had this experience when we were training of like, we'd go down rabbit holes of when you train with a real life person versus like YouTube, you get like, or Udemy, or, pick your platform of choice. You have the material. If you have a question, maybe you can throw a comment in, but maybe that person isn't looking at it anymore. Maybe there isn't people in the community that'll answer it. And then you're just kind of like left without a shovel, or, you're just sitting there trying to figure it out on your own, or maybe you hit an issue. I'm kind of curious of are there any other values of, because I think you guys both do training. Well, we talk about a lot of AI on this podcast. Like, what's the difference between working with you guys versus working with AI, or going to watch like a YouTube video? Like, what would you say is like, why would I want to get into this other than, maybe making money? But like, what is the driver? What is the difference between, like, if I could go be an MCT or record 10 YouTube videos, like, why would I want to go be an MCT? Like, what is the difference there?
If you're going to do Udemy videos, be happy with making like $120 a month. For one.
Yeah, it's not a business model you want to live on.
I mean, I know some people have been very successful. They probably got hundreds of videos, so you can that you can make a little bit more. But I have six video courses on Udemy. I get about 20 or so new people per month, and it's somewhere between $100 and $120 that goes into my pocket monthly.
We like to call it car payment money.
Yeah, it's gas money. It's gas money.
Yeah,
it's Brian's gas money for his conference trips.
Right. Yeah.
But other than that, I always laugh about AI and AI courses. If you want acronyms pronounced right, you want to come to a live person as well.
That's not always true.
It depends.
Redis cache versus Redis cache. That's the easy one that comes to mind. But there's, Kanban, Kanban,
Yeah, right.
You don't always get
true.
it right either.
Azure has about 16 different pronunciations.
Yeah.
I still call it Azure Active Directory. I don't even care. And is it Entra or Entra or Intra? See? AI probably knows.
I hear
I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
But I mean, it is that, it's, you mentioned going to, doing, talking to customers and doing trainings and going down rabbit holes. I think those rabbit holes help students learn, students understand, and help students get their own perspective on things. Video courses, all you're getting is that instructor's perspective on things, and it could be at the right level of your level of knowledge. It could be way above it, could be somewhere in the middle. When you have one-to-one interaction in an instructor-led environment, you can ask directly that question, or even you have the other students that are in that class asking questions that student is like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. That makes a lot of sense. So you've got, potentially 15 other people that can give you different perspective on things, where, again, if you're watching a video course, it's just the instructor's perspective. Now I try to go different levels within any kind of video that I record, and kind of try to break things down to an understandable real life level in a lot of cases, but that's not always the case. And sometimes I might be well above, one of my favorite analogies when I'm talking about generative AI, to get everybody to reference it, is that generative AI is like dealing with a toddler when you're talking about AI security. Because if you think about a child, when they first start walking, they want to get into everything. And that's what generative AI wants to do. Is go anywhere it can to find the information that it wants, and that's so it always needs an adult in the room, and that then kind of giving that perspective around security around AI is, kind of level sets it for everybody. Everybody's like, probably most of the people in my classes probably are parents, or been around children, or been in a mall where a parent's chasing their kids around or whatever, and things like that. Oh, that's generative AI. You're chasing that kid around, and you got to put barriers on it, and that's AI security. That's just a quick 30-second lesson on AI security for you. Treat it like a toddler. Treat it like, I was talking to another friend of mine earlier this week, and it's what generative AI has done is introduced shadow IT to your organization. It's kind of like that 1984 George Orwell thing of how we're living 1984 because of our smartphones, and all the information that we've given it on social media is us implementing 1984, that book, on ourselves. It's the same thing with generative AI. We've implemented shadow IT into our organization because of the fact that we've got to now put so many barriers on our data and our information to protect it. And and again, I may use these anecdotes in a video, but having a back and forth discussion about it is not something that you get unless you're doing an instructor-led training.
The other thing to add to that is the instructor in the video, identical name, identical look, is not the same person that shows up in your organization 6 months later, because instructors grow too, right? So like one of my best courses that still is one of my best courses for sales is on Git, but every video I'm still using master branches on them because I have yet to update those to the main. But if I showed up and train you, I'm not going to use master branch. I'm going to use main branch. That's what everybody's doing now. But at the time the video was recorded, maybe that dates the videos a little bit, but Git hasn't really changed that much. So the videos are still relevant. It's just that person in that video has different knowledge than the person who's showing up in your building today. And I can give you more tailored content. We talked a little bit offline as well, but also more relevant, more fixed content that I have doing stuff. So, oh God, my Udemy course. Put it to the training.majorguidance solutions one, the Get from Beginner to Fearless. It's a better experience overall. But that being said, like, you know, I do intend to update them. Maybe I'll have some AI generate it for me though. And it'll be like, we do evolve. We learn new stuff, right? What would get, instead of reset, it would probably know. Rebase, would it know how to say rebase correctly if I did AI speech on that? Rebase, I don't know. There'd be something it wouldn't pronounce correctly. Dead giveaway, kind of what you were talking about, Dwayne. But something in Git, I'm sure one of the commands would be pronounced incorrectly at some point.
What's really interesting, I don't know what Riverside uses for like AI voice, but just to get out of having to do all the recording, like when we do the plug for our sponsor and the kickoff of the podcast, those are both AI generated with my voice. And it's crazy how well AI gets, or how good AI gets of I'm typing up a script and having it do that. I'm kind of curious at what point could I build a slide deck, have AI like do it, and that's my YouTube video. Like I don't actually have to record maybe myself. I could just record me talking. But I guess to your guys' point too, though, how engaging is that course? Are you willing to pay for me to flip through a few slides that AI just talks? You don't have that interaction, right? Like if you saw Brian at a conference or user group, like, hey Brian, I took your course. It was awesome. That's cool. Versus like just some mysterious voice floating in the background. You'd be like who cares? You guys were also talking about, I think, John Seville in all of his videos of like people see him, they recognize him. You get more of that. You get the added, notoriety. Maybe it's the right word. Of like, but just you're people know you.
You're infamous. It's not necessarily a good thing.
But yeah, you get all those pieces, right? Of people recognize you. I think you have the flywheel effect too, right? Like people do those kind of things to potentially lead to more structured and personalized courses. Those are all games being played, right? I think a lot of just business in general is just playing a game of how do you get to the next thing? How do you do other stuff? How do different things feed together? So I think there's some marketing that goes along with when sometimes people make free courses on like YouTube or a Udemy course or whatever that can help feed into other things that you might be like, how does this person make a living? Like you said, making $100 a month. It's like, well, that's not their whole income stream. That's just a piece of it that feeds into other things. And I think sometimes as knowledge workers, we get just completely inundated with all the different ways you can make money. What's a get rich quick, blockchain, crypto? Like, are you going to go mine on your machine? Are you going to go make your next course? Like, I don't know. There's just a bunch of different avenues. So it's cool to see different ways you could potentially be leveraging your knowledge in other than just slinging code, building things.
Speaking of knowledge, Dwayne, I'm sure we have listeners out there that not necessarily are super interested in being an MCT or a trainer, but they are interested in how the heck do you manage like keeping up with everything, right? You do a lot of security stuff, like you're well known in the security community, but now you're getting certifications from Microsoft security, Amazon security, whatever all the 3-letter, 5-letter organizations are that I see you get a new certification every week from. It's like, how do you manage that? How do you stay on top? And like, where do you find the time to do that while you're still working full time?
I've become more efficient in taking exams and getting certifications than I used to be. When some of them are getting to the point where some of the content is stacked on things that I teach, especially some of the AI stuff that I'm finding, and taking just to be more AI security specific, like the Accolade AI security, a lot of the content in that exam and the course that I created for that exam relates to some of the AI cert stuff and relates to Asaka's building advanced certifications around AI as well. So I'm finding myself not studying as much and doing kind of just one shot kind of exam taking at this point, just because, just not having the time, and, maybe, and as an instructor for a lot of it, I can get, I get kind of get free or discounted access to a lot of them too. So I'm not putting a whole lot of, financial into it. Now I don't recommend that for, your general citizen, but as you know, Brian, if you want to teach different courses, you got to be certified in them. So I've got to get certified in them and prove my knowledge around that and things of that nature. So that that's what I do. I try. Sometimes I'll take a practice test or look at content at nighttime and things like that too. That's generally not something I do during the day, because I'm focusing on teaching. And Brian knows, if you're teaching a course in a day, you're pretty worn out. Being on stage for 8 hours is tough, and Brian knows this, being a performer otherwise than just teaching as well, that just being on stage for an hour or two takes a lot out of you. Try doing it for 8 hours for a 40-hour week. It is sometimes exhausting. That's what labs are good for, though. Labs kind of break up the monotony of speaking at people constantly. And being on, because you are on. I don't think about it, but you're being judged.
Yeah.
So there's a level of stress in that too. So, but yeah, those are all. But when I think about as far as training goes and kind of keeping up on certifications, keeping up on what's valid out there is definitely very key. And like I said, I've been spending a lot of time around AI stuff, especially around AI security, AI governance, and things like that, because that's where I'm passionate about. Around, from a cybersecurity perspective, how do you secure your data? How do you maintain data? One of my next certs I've got to do is also Fabric, because Microsoft's moving away from like the Synapse Analytics data engineering, and I've got to get the Fabric data engineer to be able to teach data engineering again, which I think is a key aspect to AI security and AI governance, as well as engineering your data appropriately. So yeah, I got to making sure those are all key certifications, and making sure that they're what is in demand too. Keeping up on Copilot and keeping up on Azure OpenAI and Azure AI Foundry are all important aspects of everything that I continue to kind of put on my priority list. And anything that's coming out in terms of AI certifications, in terms of security, which there's very few that are out there. So I need to. And so focusing on those and also being able to teach those is very important for me, continuing to spread the word, spread the wealth.
Awesome.
That's super, super cool. It's always interesting to hear how, like, once you start getting some of these, they get easier and easier. Because I think that's part of, personally, my reason for not starting, right, is I took one, I sat for it, didn't pass, and I was just like, this sucks. And I just didn't study again because it was, part of the exam that I thought I knew well, I didn't. And I'm like, I do this professionally. Like, why do I need to, who knows what pieces I'm missing in this equation? And they do a little high level breakdown, but it's like, I'm just done. I feel exhausted taking the exams, being on, even if you've done conference speaking, I think you get a little bit of a similar thing, right? When a user group or conference, after an hour, 45 minutes, whatever your slot is, like, you're just like, take a deep breath and you're like, that's a lot. But yeah, helping people out or doing a workshop is totally, even if you're not talking the whole time, like you said, it can still be super exhausting because you're always on. People are always asking you questions. You're trying to be prepared for everything. And maybe you covered everything and people have no questions, but then you're like, oh my God, am I just an idiot? And people are just like, this guy's so dumb, I'm not even going to bother asking a question. Like, have some of that fun imposter syndrome too.
And that's the thing. One of the things I learned years ago around getting certifications is you're not going to pass every certification, but take it as a learning experience. You learn, especially like if you like your first Microsoft exam, taking that exam and understanding then how questions are asked and what perspective they're from, and that's something you also get in a instructor-led course versus a video, is having that discussion around, okay, here's how you recognize that this answer is wrong versus the one that's right, and how do you go through process elimination, and all, reading the scenarios, and what is Microsoft asking. I've written a lot of exam items for different exams. I've also done the JTAs for building the objective areas. So I have perspective around a lot of them, as well as like ISC2 exams, because I've developed content for them, and as well as just teaching it. So those are some, those are things that you get from different courses. I know, and Brian, he's built labs, he's built content, and has a different perspective on things than I do in a lot of ways. And that's not good, or that's not necessarily good or bad. That's just different. And so having those different perspectives, and that's why I don't hesitate to say, hey, go look at John Seville's videos, because John Seville's going to have a different perspective than I do. But you can, and if you look at that video and while you're taking my class and say, hey, John Seville brought up this aspect and brought it up this way, what's your thought on that, Dwayne? You have that interaction too.
Yeah, there's such a great learning that can happen in that moment, both for the trainer and for the student, right? Because sometimes the trainers never thought of that. I mean, yeah, we're trainers, but we're not infallible. We don't know everything. We just know the guidelines for what we're training you on. And maybe there are some fringe cases or some different scenarios that we just haven't encountered in the real world yet. And so, like, I love training from that aspect of, I almost always learn something while I'm training at some point.
You're about to say the same thing as me. I finish every class by thanking them for their time and for them teaching me something, because they're going to generally teach me something as well, in terms of their life and what they're doing and what they're going through. Also.
Yeah, my favorite
I was thinking
class.
we plugged John Seville so much. Alec and Brian, you need to go ask John Seville for a sponsorship of your podcast.
Yeah, he needs to pay us. With a free course. Oh wait. So, but that circles back around to the whole trainer in the room thing. But the idea, I think my favorite class that I had that I ever taught was actually my Azure Expert stuff, and we had people from 3 different companies in there. Three different companies, a couple independents actually. And the conversations we had in that scenario were awesome, because now we've got, not only do we have some professionals who are actually doing the stuff, but we've got people that have different aspects of how they've used it. And we've had real good conversations around that. Those are trickier, because now if you do have multiple companies and things, you can't be like, well, our proprietary way of doing this is, exposing the secrets via, no, don't tell us that. Right. But the idea is, there's still lots of different perspectives in what can be brought to the table in a live scenario like that.
I had a identity and access management course, the SC300, and I had a guy who was a government contractor, and he's like, MFA is really good and using the Authenticator app, but I work in government buildings and I have to leave my phone in my car. The USB port is shut down on my device. I can't even use MFA the way Microsoft wants you to use MFA. Mm-hmm. So, that was a really interesting conversation, because we're like, when you get those kind of little use cases, it's like, yeah, that's an interesting aspect of things. And, you can't use FIDO2 USB readers to do your multi-factor authentication, do your passwordless, because you're locked down. You
right.
Can't, you're stuck at really using like a PKI card at that point, so those are different perspectives that you get, that, like I said, I learn from. And learn those conversations and kind of get those what ifs for the next class so you're prepared for that as well. So it's kind of how you stay relevant as an instructor too, is listening to your students. You know, again, doing videos all the time, you're not going to stay relevant to your students, because
no. So I want to circle back to
you're violating Udemy's policies now.
Oh no,
using that.
See,
but yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, 4 years ago, I didn't know what master and main branches were until Brian taught them to me.
That's hilarious. Now you can just have an AI agent do it for you.
Yeah, there you go. Brian, you just need to upload your transcript to something and just be like, find and replace.
I want to talk about, since you brought that up. So for my this is amazing to me. This is where AI, I think, really, really is cool. So, got so much to offer, but pare it down time-wise. Okay, so in my Git course, I have all these PDFs, and the PDFs are like activities that you can download and do to walk through the different scenarios, right? I would not use PDFs anymore now. I would have done that in Markdown. But back in the day, I didn't know Markdown, didn't even realize that it would be as powerful as it was, blah, blah, blah. I took one of my PDFs, which happened to be on rebasing, because rebasing is a typical thing that scares a lot of developers. It's kind of like the make it or break it between becoming a basic Git user to an intermediate or advanced is when you start understanding the power of rebase. That's just like this hump you go over, right? So I took that PDF of my activity and I uploaded it to Notebook LM. And the most interesting 20-minute podcast, these two arguing and talking about the things in my PDF. And it was so good. And the only reason I didn't publish it is because it had master branch in it. Because they kept talking about the master branch. And I'm like, dang it. So I love Notebook LM. I think that's really cool. It sounds like a radio show, like from a PDF. So anyway, Alec, we're going to go out of business.
Now we need a sponsorship from Google.
That's all we need to do, Alec, is we just need to put our stuff into like a transcript, and then we can just upload it to Notebook LM and then change their voices to you and me.
Yeah, there you go. Just make it funnier or
Except
better.
how would we get a guest on?
Yeah, because they do max at 2, I think. So like third person.
It's just a guy and a girl that are arguing.
Right.
It's like a radio show, right?
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah. So Dwayne, if anybody wants to follow along on your journey or get in touch about taking that certification exam, what's the best way for people to connect with you, follow, just kind of see what you're working on?
LinkedIn's about the only social media I've been using lately.
Okay.
It's the only one that, and I can't say that it's a healthy one right now because of all the different layoffs that are happening, but at least it's not political, and I'm tired of seeing political stuff on social media. So LinkedIn, go to my LinkedIn profile, connect with me, follow me, whatever. If you want to message me, have a question for me, I will respond to you most of the time within 24 hours. So
we'll make sure we put that in the podcast description. I think with that, until next time, see everybody around.
All right. Thanks for having me.